विठ्ठल विठ्ठल हरि ओम विठ्ठल
विठ्ठल विठ्ठल विठ्ठल हरि ओम विठ्ठल
विठ्ठल विठ्ठल विठ्ठल हरि ओम विठ्ठल
विठ्ठल विठ्ठल हरि ओम विठ्ठल
विठ्ठल विठ्ठल विठ्ठल हरि ओम विठ्ठल
विठ्ठल विठ्ठल विठ्ठल हरि ओम विठ्ठल
विठ्ठल विठ्ठल विठ्ठल हरि ओम विठ्ठल
विठ्ठल विठ्ठल विठ्ठल हरि ओम विठ्ठल
विठ्ठल विठ्ठल विठ्ठल हरि ओम विठ्ठल
विठ्ठल विठ्ठल विठ्ठल हरि ओम विठ्ठल
विठ्ठल विठ्ठल विठ्ठल बोलो हरि विठ्ठल
विठ्ठल विठ्ठल विठ्ठल हरि ओम 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 विठ्ठल 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 हरि ओम विठ्ठल 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 हरि ओम विठ्ठल 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 हरि ओम विठ्ठल 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 हरि ओम विठ्ठल 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 हरि ओम विठ्ठल सच्चिदानंद रूपाय विश्वोत्पत्त्यादि हेतवे तापत्रय विनाशाय श्री कृष्णाय वयं नुमः तापत्रय विनाशाय श्री कृष्णाय वयं विठ्ठल हरि ओम विठ्ठल 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 हरि ओम विठ्ठल 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 हरि ओम विठ्ठल 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 हरि ओम विठ्ठल 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 हरि ओम विठ्ठल
विठ्ठल विठ्ठल विठ्ठल
विठ्ठल
together.
Beautiful. Welcome to Satsang. What mantra can we chant daily? How will it affect me? So we'll start with that which came in advance, and then we'll take any questions that are here. So mantras are so powerful. And they're so powerful on so many different levels. So number one, a mantra on the most basic level, the mantra gives our mind something to do. Most of our minds jump around constantly. Anybody have that experience? Right. So this is one of the most common things that we walk in with is, how do I slow down this mind? How do I tame this mind? So one of the great benefits of the mantra is it's something for the mind to do. Think about a young child. Think about a puppy dog running around, playing, kind of tearing everything up, making a general disaster wherever they go. Not because they have evil intentions, but just because they're young and full of energy and don't quite know what to do with it. And so they play over here, and then they play over here, and then they pee over here, and then they climb over here. But you give them something to play with, and they'll sit down in a corner and be occupied with whatever they're playing with. The mind is very similar. It jumps all over the place, not because it means to be evil and bad and destroy your meditation and ruin your life. And the mind has been cultivated as you've lived. The mind has been created out of your experiences. It's been created out of the thoughts that you've had, the experiences you've been in. So the mind isn't the enemy. And it doesn't wake up in the morning and plan, I know I'm going to ruin her day today. I'm not going to give her a moment's peace. It just does its thing. So one of the core great assets of the mantra is it just gives the mind something to do. At least the mind comes into one place. So rather than jumping all over, it's in one place. But the mantra is more than that. The second piece of the mantra is what you could call the actual science of the mantra. And that has to do with the science of the sound, the science of those words. So if you actually look at the definition of most of the mantras that we chant, there's some variation on the theme of, oh God, by this name or with this form or with these attributes or who achieved this, I bow to you. If you take the 5 or 6 or 8 or 10 of the most common mantras that we chant, That's pretty much what they are. Oh God, by this particular name in that particular form, who achieved this or who has these characteristics, I bow to you. Whether they're mantras for Lord Shiva, mantras for Vishnu, mantras for the Mother Goddess, they're all pretty much that formula. So it's not that there's something particularly complex about the meaning of the mantra, that something in that meaning is so complex that it makes everything happen. It's basically, oh God, I bow to you. Oh God, I surrender to you. Oh God, take me in your shelter, like this. But there is a science of the sound, a science actually of these Sanskrit sounds. And this is why, even if you don't understand them, when we sit for the arti, we sit for the yagna, you're listening to mantras being chanted, even if you don't understand them. If your heart is open, they actually have the power to change you alchemically, to transform you alchemically. There's a science to the sound. That's also why it's important to chant them correctly. So those are the first two elements of the mantra. The third element, though, is that it evokes love for God in us. As you take God's name over and over and over again, love for God starts to blossom. And that's true whether you've got it pronounced exactly right or not. So you may miss some of the benefits of the power of the sound, the power of the syllables, the power of the science of that. But if it's evoking love in you, then you've still got the power of the mantra. And if you can get all three, then it's extraordinary. Then you've got your mind in one place, that single pointed focus that we talk about, which is in the 8 limbs of yoga that Patanjali gave. Right before we get to the limb of dhyan or meditation, we have single pointed focus. And the mantra really is that. It brings the mind into that single pointed focus, and then it gives us that great power, that great science of sound, and it opens our hearts. It opens our hearts to love for God. And those 3 things taken together are extraordinary. So does it have the power to change your life? Yeah, absolutely. But when you think about the mantra, think about it in terms of a relationship. It's not the mantra is just my magic wand, and if I chant it enough, I'm going to get whatever I want. It's about a relationship with this sacred sound. A relationship with connecting with the divine through these sounds, through that very particular equation, you can say, to God. So yeah, absolutely, chant a mantra. And it doesn't really matter which one it is, as long as it's something that connects you, that appeals to you, that sounds right to you, that feels right to you, that you can chant and chant and chant and chant. And then what ends up happening is the mantra starts chanting itself. In the beginning, we chant it. We have to remember to keep chanting it. The mind gets distracted, then we bring it back to the mantra. But slowly, 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 the mantra starts chanting itself. And then you become that mantra. It's like with your heartbeat, with the flow of your blood, with the steps you take as you walk, that mantra is on. And it's extraordinary. So, yes, absolutely. Use a mantra. It's a very ancient and powerful technique. And if you have a guru, it's very powerful to take that mantra from the guru. But if you don't have a guru, you can use any of them that feels right to you. See what appeals to you. What form of the divine is one that speaks to you. Of course, it's all one God. There's nothing but God. It's just different reflections. It's like when you love someone and you take their picture. Sometimes some people you just want to take that beautiful straight on shot, and then sometimes you're like, no, I love your profile. Just turn a little bit that way. Love that profile shot. Okay. Some it's like, oh, look right in the camera, give me a big smile. And some you say, no, just look off that way. Maybe close your eyes. Depending on you as the photographer, depending on them as the subject, depending on your relationship, whatever it may be. But you understand, of course, that the person you love, whose photo you're taking, who's now giving you a profile shot rather than straight on, or who's now looking off into the sunset rather than smiling into your camera frame, is the same person. In the same way, whatever reflection, manifestation, angle of the divine feels bare minimum, brings the mind into focus. And even if you had no other benefit, simply having your mind anchored and rooted into one sound, one chant, one prayer, that in and of itself is enough to transform you. The spaciousness in your mind, the spaciousness in your life, because of course we all want to feel love, we want to feel peace, we want to feel joy, we want all of that, but in many of our minds there's no room. Like, I'm so busy being stressed and frustrated and annoyed and worried that there just isn't any room to feel love. There isn't any room to feel peace. And simply creating that space, simply bringing the mind away from all of that stress and frustration and annoyance and desires and fears and regrets and oh my God, what not else, is enough to create space. And into that space flows the truth of what we're supposed to feel. Love. Truth. Awareness. Divine connection. Peace. For me, I know my mantra is like my life raft. If I ever find myself in a situation where my mind starts to go, or I get worried or something, whatever it may be, that mantra is literally just a life raft, life preserver, That if you were drowning in an ocean and somebody throws you a lifeline to just grab onto, that you know, all right, now it's going to take me to safety. You know, a life preserver on the back of a speedboat that's going to take you back to shore. That's what it feels like. Are there any questions here? Yes.
For the divine, every language is same.
Yes.
How does Sanskrit language has such say?
Oh, great. Okay. So, back on the subject of mantras, he said, so for the divine, every language is the same, of course. So why is it that the Sanskrit mantras are so powerful? So, first of all, yes, of course, to God, every language is the same. God is not bestowing extra blessings on people who pray in a certain language versus people who pray in a different language. And you'll remember that I gave 3 different benefits of the mantra. The first being gives one thing for us to focus on, a single pointed focus that then can lead us into meditation. Then we have the actual power of the sound. And then we have the power of the love, the bhakti, that connection to God that chanting God's name evokes. So if you chose a mantra in any other language, you would still have number 1 and number 3. What Sanskrit has that other languages don't have, as far as I'm aware of, is that element of number 2. So for example, there is a science of sound in Sanskrit. Now, in all of my years of learning English, there's a lot of rules, but rules are sort of different from science. So we have rules of English, and you have rules in classrooms like keep your voice down. So we have rules of volume, loud or soft. But there isn't really a science of that sound. I'm going to the store today. Today, I'm going to the store. No difference. If you said to any English professor, English expert, which is better, who cares? To the store. Today I go. I mean, we could do that all night. We could just sort of keep moving the words around, right? And they're all grammatically correct, the options I've given. They're spoken at an appropriate volume. I'm not shouting it at you. Spoken at an appropriate tone. Nobody would say talk nicely to him. But there's no science involved there. There's no magic of that sound that is actually coming in magic in the sound waves in the air that's causing any kind of a change in you. The way that normal language impacts us simply is in our reaction to it. So I say to you, today I'm going to the store. You say, have a good time. But maybe today you were expecting that you and I were going to go for a picnic. So I say, today I'm going to the store. And you say, what? No. Now you cry. Well, it's not my actual words that have made you cry. It's not that there was a power in the sound of those words that has brought forth tears from your eyes. It's your unfulfilled expectation that brought forth tears from your eyes. And it doesn't matter how I say it. I mean, I could say it ungrammatically even. You'd still cry. I could yell it, I could whisper it, you'd still cry. Because it has nothing to do with the words and only to do with your expectation. Now, Sanskrit and the mantras actually have a power in the words. There is a scripture called the Samved that is dedicated to the science of sound. Now, I am far from an expert in the Samved or that science, but I know that this is something that people study for many, 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 many years. And it's all about the impact of those sounds when you put them together, what happens when you chant them at a certain pitch, at a certain speed. It's also the only tradition I know of that has different sounds that work with different times of day. I mean, that's a different science. But if you think about all of how Indian culture has taken sound, that's where these mantras have a power that is that third piece. And that power impacts you, as I said, even if you don't know what it means. If I don't know that my mantra means, "O beloved God, by this name, of this form, with these characteristics, I bow to you," it's not going to evoke love for God in me. If my guru played a trick on me and said, "I'm giving you this mantra," and he gave me some sacred mantra, and he said, "It means the dog walks in the park." So I'd still benefit actually from the sound of the mantra if I chanted it right. But I wouldn't benefit from it evoking love for God in me. Because every time I chanted the mantra, I would just picture a dog walking around the park. So even if I don't understand it, it still has the power to impact me on that third piece. So this is where the Sanskrit mantras have all three of these pieces. If you're the one chanting it and you know what it means and you chant it correctly, you get all three benefits. But if you prefer to chant a mantra in another language, it doesn't matter. In fact, Pujya Swamiji tells a great story of a woman, this goes back a long time, of a woman in Chicago who came to see him. American woman who came to him one day and said, she was a friend of the people he was staying with in Chicago, and she said, "I really need a Hindu mantra." And he said, "Well, what religion are you?" And she said, "I'm Christian, but don't worry about it, I need a Hindu mantra." And he said, "Well, why do you need a Hindu mantra?" And she said, "Because I've been told Hindu mantras are magic and my life is a complete mess. My work is a mess, my family is a mess, everything is a mess, and I've been told a Hindu mantra will fix it, and I will chant whatever you tell me, so just give me a mantra." So he tried to convince her, "You don't need a Hindu mantra, just go to church, just pray to Jesus Christ, it will all be okay." But she was stubborn. She said, "No, no, no, I'm not leaving without my Hindu mantra." So he said, "Okay, come back tomorrow morning." Typically, we do prayer ceremonies like that in the morning on a fasting stomach. So he said, you come in the morning, you get up, you bathe, you're fasting. You bring these flowers. So she comes and he sits her down and he takes her through the whole ritual, because there's a whole ritual involved in being given a mantra by the guru. And when it came time to actually give her the mantra, he says, "Okay, now repeat after me. Om." She says, "Om." He says, "Christ." She says, "What?" She says, that's not a Hindu mantra. He says, this is the mantra I am giving you. Om Christ. Om Christ. And he gave her a Rudraksh mala, and he said, now you take that home and you chant it, and I'm coming back in 3 months or 6 months or whatever it is. And every day you chant 5 malas, 5 full malas, and then tell me when I come back. And when he came back, she came to see him, and she was like, your mantra was magic. Oh my God, it has fixed my life. So the point being, even from a traditional Hindu guru, speaking Sanskrit, typically giving Sanskrit mantras, this is his teaching. So any language, any religion, it doesn't matter. What matters is the devotion in your heart. And yes, there is also a science of sound in Sanskrit that if that works for you, if it appeals to you, it's just yet another very powerful tool to utilize. But love is the most powerful. So whatever actually evokes love and faith. So that's the power of prayer, is the faith. Are there any other questions here? Yes.
How do you become better at making life choices?
Beautiful. So we'll take this as our last question. How do you become better at making life choices? By knowing really what you want. One of the reasons that making decisions is so difficult is we don't really know what we want. We have theories of what we want. We have things that we know we should want to want. But we may not actually want them. And so, for example, let's say I decide that I want to get healthy, okay? Maybe I'm diabetic, maybe I'm overweight, maybe I've got high cholesterol, whatever it may be, and I've decided, okay, I want to get healthy. In order to get healthy, I need to eat better, and I need to exercise, and right? And every time I sit down at a restaurant to eat and I look at the menu, I order junk food. High calorie, high grease, high sugar, junk food. And every time I have an opportunity to exercise, so say I buy a gym membership and I decide, okay, every day, every morning, before I go to the office, I'm going to go to the gym. And every morning, I pick up my phone and I get on Facebook. And the next thing I know, it's 45 minutes later and my time to go to the gym is over. And now I have to quickly jump in the shower to go to work. Now you could say that ordering unhealthy food and sitting on Facebook instead of going to the gym are not good decisions. But here's what we have to understand about them. If really what I wanted was to be healthier, I would order differently in the restaurant. I'd get off my rear end in the morning and I'd go to the gym. It wouldn't be easy. Starting a new habit, inculcating new things, it takes a little while. Inertia is a very powerful force. Habits are very powerful forces. But you can overcome them. If a doctor said to you, you've got a week to live unless you start exercising, you'd exercise. Just as about what the motivation is. And so what we have to realize in that case is, I guess I don't really want to be healthy more than I really want to enjoy French fries. Or more than I really want to have lazy mornings on Facebook. Or more than I really want to stay identified in this stuck, unhealthy place for whatever psychological reason that is playing in my life. I have to look at those things. So the first piece is to really identify, what do you want? Because once we really know what we want, making the right decisions is actually much easier. No matter what we want. If I decide that my highest goal in life is to make $10 billion, my highest goal in life is to be the richest person on the planet. Well, my decisions are going to follow suit. No, I'm not going to go for tea with you on Saturday afternoon. I got to go to the office. I'm sorry? Right. If you were going to be one who took money from people or charged them or did things, like that, sure. But not nearly as effective as going to the office and actually working for it. But that's what I would do. Work 7 days a week, 20 hours a day. I'd forsake my health. I'd forsake my family. I'd make choices in line with what I really wanted. But if what I really wanted is to experience the truth of who I am, or if really what I wanted was to just live in love, I'd make choices accordingly. Doesn't mean I wouldn't have a job, but it might mean I wouldn't work 7 days a week. Might mean I'd work more reasonable hours, maybe earn less. I certainly wouldn't become the richest person in the world. But that would be okay because that wasn't my goal. The dilemma is, until we understand really what do we want, not what do my parents tell me I should have, not does what the culture tell me I should have, not what I want to have. A lot of us do that. I want to be one of those people who wants to make a lot of money. I want to be one of those people who wants to be successful. But that's very different than actually wanting those things. Maybe what you want is something completely different. Maybe what you want is the freedom to travel all over the world. And maybe if what that means is your only house is a tent, so be it. It's worth it to you. So we have to understand, what do we want on this plane, on this physical plane, but also understand what do we want on a deeper level. Because if you take any of the things that we want, so if we went around the room and I said to you, what do you want? What do you want in life? What's your highest goal? And we've done this before. What gets shouted out are things like success, financial success, love, joy, peace, power, all sorts of things. But when we dissect them, so when you actually take any of those highest goals that people have, you actually dissect them and you get down to the deepest, corest level. what they all come to is joy, happiness. That's the core yearning. But a happiness, a joy that stays, not one that goes up and down, not one that's rooted in the stock market. One that isn't dependent on what's happening in the world around me, one that's pervasive. And the only way to have that is to be free. So here's my favorite example of that. Raise your hand if you're happy to be sitting where you are right now. Great, well, thank you. Okay. If I now say, lock these doors, no one's getting out of here tonight. Doors are now locked. Nobody can leave. Now, how many of you are happy to be sitting here? Well, you're sweet. Still a few of you. But point being, you'll notice we went from 100% to 10%. And those 10% may be happy till tomorrow morning, but there would come a point where even that 10% was no longer happy. Not because we weren't having a beautiful satsang, but simply because in order to continue to be happy, I have to be free.
You mean free from one thing?
Free from?
One thing.
Free from everything, yes. Free. I have to be free in this particular situation. I have to be free to leave. My joy of being here is rooted in the awareness that I came in on my own accord, and I can leave on my own accord. I am free to be here, so I am free to enjoy it. In life, I have to be free from all of that keeps me stuck. Wants, desires, absolutely. They're a massive chain on us. But another massive chain is ego. Ego is that voice that tells you you're too old, you're too young, you're too poor, you're too rich, you're too fat, you're too stupid, you're too nice, you're not nice enough, you're this, you're that. Have to be free from identity that says this is your box, this is who you are. Because nothing else could give me constant joy unless I'm free. Because if I have desires that are trapping me, that I'm attached to fulfilling, if I have an ego that's in the driver's seat of my life, if I have an identity that I'm attached to and wrapped up in, then something other than my highest self is pulling the strings. So I'm then not free. Now, we'll come back to this in a second. I just want to not get completely off track, and then I'll come back to that. I want to just come back for a moment to making the decisions. So when I know what my highest goal is, both here on this plane, but connected to the ultimate reality, consciousness, divinity that I'm part of, that is who I am at the core. Then, every time we make a decision, that question has to simply be asked to us, or we ask ourselves, which decision is most in line with what I really want? And then it becomes much simpler. And that doesn't mean, by the way, that there's always only one right decision. When you realize that it's not about how much money you make or how much acclaim you get or how big your house is or any of these external things that a lot of us base our life decisions on, when we realize that that's not what life is actually about, because it isn't what gives us what we actually want, well then you may find yourself in a situation with 10 equally good possibilities. And that's wonderful. Choose any of them. But if you find that you're making decisions that turn out to be the wrong decisions, you've got to take a step back and ask yourself, do I think I want something different than what I really want? Like, does my subconscious want something different than what I'm trying to tell myself I want? So am I telling myself I want to be an engineer, but I'm failing every math class even though I'm smart? Is there something in my subconscious that's saying, no, 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 I want to be a musician, I want to be an artist, I don't want to be an engineer? And so it's self-sabotaging? Or is there something in me that says, you're too stupid, you'll never be an engineer, you'll never succeed, that's self-sabotaging for that reason? Why am I making decisions that turn out wrong? Or another way is, maybe they don't turn out wrong. Just because they're not decisions that necessarily get me the job offer or give me the money that I wanted or gave me that acclaim or gave me that success, that doesn't mean it was the wrong decision. If we realize that ultimately the purpose of our life is to wake up spiritually, and you've made a decision that may have not been so great on a financial level or a career level or a lot of other levels, but it has thrust you into a situation where you've got no choice but to drop deep, well, then it was the right decision. And it was a decision that a part of you that you may not be consciously aware of was making, because it knew, I need to have that experience in order to have the awakening that I need. So don't be so quick to judge yourself of wrong or right, but do be inquisitive about your own actual core desires. Because it's really important for us all to know, what do I want? And then take steps toward it. And don't let anybody else tell you what you should want. That's when you get stuck. Figure out, really, what do you want? But don't sell yourself short. Means don't satisfy yourself with, oh, I just want to have a nice house and a nice car and, nice marriage and nice kids and food on the table. I mean, that's great. May God bless you that you should have all those things. But don't sell yourself short in life. That's not the highest goal. You're put on earth to experience a lot more than that. So go deep and go high. And figure out really what you want. Because whatever it is, you deserve it. And then make decisions to walk toward it. And lastly, just coming back to the concept of freedom, because it was such a beautiful, slight digression. The word that's used in Sanskrit for liberation is moksha. That's according to a Hindu way of life the highest goal. What do you want? Moksha, liberation, freedom. Now, typically it gets described or defined as that which happens after death. You die, drop the body, now you are free. The problem is, the body isn't that which keeps us stuck. The body's gorgeous. The body is an amazing, divine work of creation. After thousands of years of basic science and a few hundred years of like advanced science, we still can't create one. Sometimes we can fix what goes wrong, hold it together for an extra few months or years. But even knowing everything we know about a body, we have all the material. We've got the carbon and the oxygen and the nitrogen, all the elements that actually go together into the molecules that actually make the cells of the body. We've got it all. Cannot build a body. So it's an incredible feat of creation. It's gorgeous. That's not what holds us back. What holds us back is the mind. But in a very interestingly ironic way, or you could think of it instead of an irony, you could think of it as God's divine play, is that we actually need that mind to go beyond the mind. Because the same place from which all of that, you're ugly, you're stupid, that person's stupid, he's an idiot, what did he do? Why are they talking to you like this? I should have more money, I should have that. The same organ, this brain, that's given me all that nonsense, is the same organ that chants, I'm not my body, that chants my mantra, that takes me within. Same organ. It's not the source of consciousness by any means, of course not. But it is the medium through which we experience consciousness, which is actually why it's believed that humans are the only ones with the possibility for enlightenment. Because we're the only ones who can look at ourselves, who can be conscious of ourselves, who can say, I'm not that thought. I'm not that emotion. I'm not my body. I'm not my lust. I'm not my greed. I'm not any of that. That can watch it. That can watch the breath. That can watch the being. And maybe, with grace, have an experience of being the watcher of it, rather than the angry one, the lustful one, the greedy one, the addicted one, the depressed one, and then to go even another step deeper or higher and to watch the one that watches. So to be aware of my own watching. But to do that, I need to have a brain.
Actually, I don't believe.
Okay.
I believe we are the only species who are not enlightened because we have brain.
So you absolutely may be right. He said, I think we're actually the only species who are not enlightened because we have a brain. You may be right. You would be going up against thousands of years of scriptures and sages and rishis, but I'm not the one to say they're right, you're wrong. What I can tell you is what the sages, what the saints, what the rishis, what the scriptures tell us. I have absolutely no memory of a past life in the body of an animal or a past life in the body of a tree. So I don't For me, the only way to actually know something for sure is to have experienced it. If I haven't experienced it, my place of learning is those you trust. So since I don't have any personal memory of consciousness as an animal or a bird or a tree with which to compare consciousness in the body, you turn to those who tell us. But either way, and I want to just bring it to a close because we have a birthday to celebrate, and then we'll conclude satsang for tonight. But if you're here, we can take this up because it's a beautiful and very important topic of consciousness. The core pieces, whether we're the only species, whether we're not the only species, it's irrelevant. The only thing that matters is, can you be free? That's the opportunity we've all been given. Whether every human has it, whether no other human has it, again, irrelevant. The only thing that matters for each of us is, how can I, in this lifetime, use what I have, my awareness, my consciousness, my intention, my attention, to take myself to the highest place that I can reach, that I want to reach. And whether we call it enlightenment, whether we call it freedom, whether we simply call it peace, whether we call it love, whether we call it awakening, whatever we call it, it doesn't matter. But that freedom is our highest calling, such that we are never a slave to a desire. We're never a slave to a fear. We're never a slave to conditioning. We're never a slave to some random thought that some billboard put in our brain. But that I am free every moment and every choice to drop back into, who am I? And what do I want? What is my highest, deepest, corest truth? And how can I live that in this moment? And that is definitely true. Have a beautiful rest of your evening. We will not be having satsang tomorrow, unfortunately, because I will be in Pune tomorrow. But I will be back day after tomorrow. So, no satsang tomorrow, but yes, back day after. But before we break for this evening, we have a very special birthday. We actually have two special birthdays. And we have a satsang tradition with birthdays where we do happy birthday in whatever language we happen to have of the people in the room. So we'll begin in English because it gets everybody warmed up. And then we'll go around, and wherever you're from, whatever your native tongue is, we will ask you to join us in offering whatever happy birthday sounds like in your language. So Julia, come up also. We have Shreya and Julia. And so let's begin with a beautiful round. Actually, we should begin, we'll begin in English. And in the meantime, will you call our Rishi Kumars in to give us the Sanskrit version? Wonderful. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, dear Shreya and Julia. Happy birthday to you. Wonderful. And as our Rishi Kumars come in, anyone else, wherever you're from, raise your hand, shout it out. Yes. Austria. Israel. Fantastic.